Hi, this is Dawn Olszewski and welcome to another episode of How'd She Do That? And today we're going to make this front door card, and it features a punch art Christmas wreath. Recently I received a similar card from my friend Lorri Heiling, and my customers totally fell in love with it, so I did it for a recent class and I thought I'd share it with you today. So let's get started. For this card, if you look really close, you can see there's just a little added texture here. You can see it here. That is some scoring that I did with the Simply Scored tool from Stampin' Up. And how I did it, the base of this card measures 4 1/4 by 11, and I put it in my Simply Scored tool on the landscape. Okay, and actually do it this way. You want the inside of this to be working on, because as you push on it to create the score line, it's going to create the texture on the outside. Okay, so I've already done this one. I have scored it at 1/2 inch and 5 inches. And then I turned it, so now we're in the portrait way. And I'm scored it at 1/2 inch again. And I'm going to score it again at this mark, which is the 3 3/4 inch mark right here. Okay, so the other thing is you only want to take it down to this line. This is the fold line. Now I folded this in half before I did the scoring, so that is a tip that you need to do beforehand. Alright, so we're going to get started on our 4 panels of the door. And that starts with a piece of Very Vanilla. This measures 2 1/2 by 3 7/8. And I'm using the wood grain background stamp from Stampin' Up. And this ink is Crumb Cake. Okay, and if you've not done background stamping before, I always ink mine up upside down. Okay, and then I place my paper on it. Okay. And then I'm using my grid paper, but you could use just scratch paper. And what I want to do is I want to place it over it and give it a nice rub. Give it a good rub down. Alright, there we go. And there's our wood grain. Alright. Okay, so what you want to do is take your stamped panel, and you're going to cut this in half this way and then half that way. So remember, this measured 2 1/2 inches wide, so I'm going to cut it in half at 1 1/4 inch. And then I can stack these because they're thin enough. This was our Very Vanilla. And if you recall, this was 3 7/8. So I'm going to cut it at 2 15/16. So I'm going to come in really close. You're going to go, what's 2 15/16? So I don't know if you can see, but 2 inches, and then we want to back down just one of those little tick marks. That's a 1/16 of an inch. So that's where we want to be, is that 15/16. And we'll cut that, and we have our 4 pieces. I'll put up the measurements for if you're not stamping these, I'll put the measurements for the individual ones up there as well. Okay, so we're going to move on to the wreath now, and I am using Wild Wasabi, and I'm going to use, this is the 1 inch circle punch. I'm going to push it all the way in and punch it out, and I'm going to go around the other side and do the same thing. Now I started with, this is just like a 1/4 sheet of cardstock, 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. You can just use your scraps, but this works great as well. Now what I want to do, this is the scallop scallop circle, and it is 1 3/4 inch. What I want to do is I want to push it in here, and I want to get this circle that was punched out centered in my punch here. So it's just an eyeball thing. I'm going to punch that out. That looks good. Now I'm going to take our larger one, this scallop circle, and this is a 2 3/8 inch. I'm going to do the same thing. I'm going to center that. And that looks pretty good. And there we go. So essentially these are I'm going to use dimensionals to attach them together to create more of a 3D look to our wreath. But before I do that, I'm going to come in with a sponge dauber and Wild Wasabi ink, and I'm going to do some sponging. Alright, so I'm going to sponge all those edges, and I'm also going to sponge the inside circle just on the smaller one. You don't need it on the larger one because it's essentially going to be covered up by this. Alright, so I'm going to finish the sponging and I'll be right back. Okay, and we got one last piece of punching. The doorknob is actually, let's see if I can go in here. It's 2 layers. It's like a little sandwich. It's like a little dimensional sandwich. And this was punched out of early espresso, and I used the owl punch. So it's one of the larger circles and one of the smaller circles. And like I say, just put them together with a dimensional. Okay, so we're ready to put our door together, and as you can see that I've also did some sponging. This was just with the crumb cake around each of the 4 door panels. What we're going to do here is I put dimensionals on the back of this. This whole card is put together with dimensionals with the exception of a couple things. So I'm going to come in as close as I can here, and you can see the panels here. This area, you're going to start a panel right in the corner there. Oh, come on out now. And that's how your 4 panels are going to go in there. It's just within that scored section. So there you go. All 4 panels are in there. We'll put that aside. Now we're going to assemble our wreath. And I like to use the outer edges that kind of are the leftover edges for my wreath. And just tear them off, or you can cut them if you want to. Make sure that you're on the back side, so this side is our sponge side. And I just add like 3 of them. Should be plenty. Probably only need 2 even. And there you go. And that's going to stack on top of this one. Just like that. There you go. Then I added, this is the back side of the larger one. I added 3 more dimensional kind of ends. And we're going to add this to our card. Okay. Now I'm going to put the doorknob on. I talked about that. Now this is glue dots, so I just added glue dots to that. And our final thing is the ribbon. Okay, so we're just going to add a bow here, and I've already done it, and I've done what I call the bunny ear bow. And it's just a little ribbon that, it's like a ribbon trick of tying that a demonstrator of mine coined. And if I do have a separate video for that, so you can see how that's done. I've just added it with a glue dot, and there we go. Isn't that cute? Love it. Thank you, Lorri, for sharing your awesome talent. And for more creative inspiration, stop by my blog at dostampinwithdawn.com.